to the Web3 Prof podcast.
Well, good morning and good afternoon, everyone. I am here with Matt Lockyer. Matt is an interesting guy with an organization called Proximity. And by way of introduction, he comes with the title of I wear many hats. And so, unfortunately, today he's actually not wearing any hats, but Matt, welcome.
Welcome. Thank you.
You can welcome me too. Can you say that actually? Welcome, Jarrett.
Welcome, Jarrett.
Welcome, Jarrett, to your own podcast. Okay, tell me, Matt, the welcomer, how did you get into Web3? Where did the journey start for you? And give us kind of like a 1 or 2 minute synopsis. This is gonna be a hard conversation. one or 2 minute synopsis of your journey into Web3.
Well, actually, it's kind of fun. Here in town, a bunch of tech meetups happen in Vancouver all the time, and I knew a bunch of fellows, and a gentleman by the name of Adrian Yonklis was inviting me out to, for a bite of pizza. It was actually January 2nd, 2017. He said, hey, we're going to get a venture studio together, and you're a developer and you also like kind of talking to people and working with early stage projects. Let's get you on there. And I said, well, what's it all about? And he said, you have a background in, graphics programming and all this kind of stuff. So that there's going to be an AR, VR, MR, whatever they were calling their reality at the time.
Yeah.
There's going to be that component. There's going to be an AI ML component, and there's going to be a blockchain component. And I said, blockchain. Okay, well, tell me about that one. Cause
right. You don't know.
I've never really heard that term. And he said, well, you know about Bitcoin. Thought I heard something about it. I was at UBC doing my undergrad, and some Asian student passes me with his laptop out. He goes, are you mining Bitcoin on your laptop yet? And we look at him and we go, no, it's 2010. So I asked him what it was all about, this student, and he broke it down. And then I went home. I had my gaming rig at the time, and I crunched the numbers, crunched the BC Hydro numbers, couldn't make it make sense. So I just said, no way.
Okay,
I'm
wait,
not gonna do it.
That's fascinating. So you had heard early on from a student at UBC, like, hey, you should mine, but electricity was just too expensive.
On your laptop.
On your laptop.
Yeah.
And this was really, it was that long ago, 2010?
Yeah. So basically, back to pizza with Adrian, he tells me about Ethereum, and he says, hey, it's a lot more than just money. Because you're not really, he knew I was kind of not really a money motivated guy. He says, a lot more than money. We can do contracts, agreements, we can do, game items and all sorts of fun stuff. So I start going down the rabbit hole, and I'm gone. Like, I'm obsessed. I start seeing, Vitalik and a bunch of people doing these ICOs, and we're going to change the world, blah, blah, blah. So I go pretty deep into it. And, but then I also realized there's just massive limitations to technology. So it just, it was sort of it was a fit and start, but I went really hard into it from about the beginning of 2017. I went to the first Ethereum global hackathon, the ETH Waterloo. I sat next to Joe Lubin, like by accident. It's just like really funny stuff. And I had an idea for composable NFTs, so NFTs that could own other NFTs. And I ran it by Vitalik, and it actually got him thinking for about 1.2 seconds until he started poking holes in it, telling me about, what about recursive ownership? And I was like, damn, like all this stuff. So it's just really fun. And I've met a lot of really good kind of the builders of the space. And that's still the crowd that I kind of hang out with. I've been to Consensus a number of times and sort of been around the suits and the money stuff. Never been to Dubai yet, but
that's next step.
Yes, next level. I'd probably be kind of bored there. But
first, you got to buy a Lamborghini, and then you can go to Dubai.
That's right.
Be a true crypto bro.
And then there was a period where I kind of fell out when the market was down, the sort of late 2018 to 2019, and then got back into it, got recruited into Near Protocol by a good friend of mine who I actually just spoke to today, Dustin Goodwin. He's with Serotonin. It's the big Web3 marketing outfit led by Amanda Cassett. She just published a book. And thanks to Dustin, I met Ilya, the co-founder of Near, and there's just a really deep technical bench there, just just mega brains. And I wanted to learn much, much more about, the consensus layer, cryptography, and like what it takes to build like a best-in-class blockchain. And it worked.
So now you're with Near. And what I think is always interesting is whenever I talk to people who are working with or for layer one protocols, they don't ever work for them or they work with them. And it's always a little bit ambiguous as to the relationship. So can you explain, like, what is it like being a person who works with or for or near Near?
That's a great question. So when I joined, it was pre-mainnet. So there was really only the Near Foundation, and there was a sort of a US-based outfit called Near Inc. that was responsible for the core protocol and the early products. So I was actually on the wallet team with a gentleman named Kendall Cole. And then as things sort of moved on and progressed and mainnet kind of happened, people had to kind of go to different places to take on the different silos of Web3 as they pertain to the Near ecosystem. So we basically had Proximity, which is an organization, completely separate entity from the Near Foundation, form to tackle specifically DeFi. So just that kind of vertical. And Kendall ended up as the director of Proximity. And then I moved over shortly thereafter.
Okay. So let's go back to maybe the foundation here as to, okay, so if you can maybe break down a couple things. So what is a layer one? And tell us about Near being a layer one.
And that's a great question. So there's obviously a lot of layer ones out there. So, a bunch of usually it's a bunch of nerds get together, right? And they say, hey, we've seen these other layer ones, and it's all open source code because it has to be kind of, transparent and out there in the open. So they've looked at their code bases and they've thought, well, there are ways that I would do this differently, going back to fundamental architectural decisions. So like you're going to build a house, right? Like what materials you're going to use, how are you going to pour the foundation, real architectural decisions. So they say, hey, we're going to do it differently. So they start building it usually from the ground up. There's a lot of layer ones out there that are kind of just clones. But Near was one that was kind of fundamentally built from the ground up. And they say, we can do it better. And they start building the code base. They start building out sort of what they refer to as like a specification for how the protocol is going to operate, what's going to be available at the account layer, how are transactions going to be signed, how are we going to reach consensus about which transactions are valid or not amongst all of the nodes. And then from there, they say, okay, well, this is getting pretty real. So we'll run a testnet, and then, eventually that testnet of like basically a new instance of that becomes the mainnet. So that's where the money's real.
So a testnet is just basically like pretend. Here we're just trying it out and testing it. And then once it goes to mainnet, then it's an active, live, functioning network. That's
right. And I actually brought down the Near testnet 2 times. But Near...
You should put that on your LinkedIn.
But Near employees at the time, there were bug bounties for outsiders to bring it down. But because I was sort of I had privileged knowledge, I didn't really use any specific privileged knowledge. I just brought it down because I was kind of messing around. I was always making stuff, always trying to do stuff.
Yeah.
In this case, Near has an account model that's a little different than I think pretty much all other blockchains, but they are modifying that. There's Ethereum proposals where they're going to bring in a similar account model. So one account is usually derived from the public and private keys. So you basically one account, one key, right?
Okay.
On Near, it's not the case. So you have one account and you can have just hundreds, thousands of keys.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and these keys can be limited to only doing specific things.
Yeah.
So it's a very advanced account model. And I was horsing around with sort of adding and deleting keys. And I noticed something strange. I noticed that the amount of Near in my account was actually going up if I added and deleted the exact same key pair. And so there was a bug. And I basically thought, okay, well, this is on testnet. I'll just turn what I'm doing, my one-time add delete test case, into a little script. I'll walk away, have dinner with my wife, and I'll come back and I'll see if I have a substantial amount more near. And if it does work, I'll go over. Mainnet was live at the time. I was like, I'll go over to mainnet and I'll start doing it over there. And I came back and there was a bunch of denials. And I said in a internal Slack, I said, is there like a rate limit or something? Like, did I just get blacklisted or something? Oh, sorry, can't say that. Deny listed. Let's cut there.
You're so politically correct.
So I don't get canceled. Did I just get deny listed from Testnet? And I asked that question. And this guy, Vlad, who's pretty funny, and he also worked on the Volleyball team, he said, you just denied everyone. Like, everyone's off Testnet now because it was just gone.
Wow.
Total blackout.
So if you could have exploited that in mainnet and made a lot of money, theoretically?
Actually, it would have done what it did on
the same
It
thing.
would have crashed mainnet.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but that wouldn't have looked good for me.
Well, obviously, nor yourself as a hopeful employee or contractor. Okay, so now tell us about your role. So you work many hats at Proximity. So Proximity is kind of an offshoot of the Near Foundation to deal with DeFi or decentralized finance within the Near community. So what do you actually do?
That's a great question. Yeah. So Proximity received a grant very early on to basically steward the DeFi ecosystem for Near. So early on, there was a lot of grant giving from Proximity in terms of building infrastructure. So building bridges and building wallet support and other things that we needed to see for DeFi analytics and just all sorts of stuff. And then, as the market sort of kind of turned, we moved over to more investment. So we're investing in teams, still doing that actively. So the reason I say many hats is because, I'm out there finding like new teams that are doing multi-chain DeFi, bringing talent to Near, launching their products on Near, and we're making investments into projects. We're also just helping strategically guide projects in the Near ecosystem, and just make Near a good place for people to take their crypto. They want to lend it out. They want to earn some interest. They want to sort of, do something like, perpetuals or something, kind of like bet on the trajectory of various coins. It should just be like a safe place to do it. I should also say like that the Proximity ethos is very much non-custodial. Like, we believe in DeFi as in true DeFi. So not your sort of your CDeFi or your Celsiuses or things like that. So when it comes to anything outside of, AMMs, which are automatic market makers, so like Uniswap style decentralized exchanges. When it comes to these are terrible names, CLOBs, which are the order books.
What are they? What's that?
CLOBs.
CLOBs?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like I forget what the CL means, but it's order books basically. Okay. So these are decentralized exchanges that are order books.
Centralized ledger order book. I bet you that's what it is.
Something
could be
like that. Yeah. So it's these are order books, and outside of those two narratives, and then what can be built on top of them, which is perpetuals, options, futures, we can't really find like much to invest in. So we obviously infrastructure, wallets, bridges, things like that, ZK stuff, cool, privacy. But we get approached a lot with like real world asset projects, and they say, hey, we're going to build a solar farm and people can park their crypto in the future investments of the solar farm, and then they can earn a return. But that's a lot of trust that's obviously off chain. And it's a lot of like, it goes back to looking like those CDeFi projects.
Right. So when we look at the Near community, are there functioning NFT communities, NFT marketplaces, DeFi protocols, DEXs, games? How far do things happen in Near compared to all the other 200 layer one blockchains out there?
Yeah, that's a great question. So there's a really big NFT marketplace in the early days called Paras. It was actually started by just a couple of guys in Indonesia, and they did really, really well as Near sort of like kind of came up. That was a couple of years ago. There's now like much more kind of, I would say like, I guess like situated teams, like sort of more like kind of American kind of invested teams, building NFT marketplaces, creator studios on Near. One of them is called Few and Far. There's, in terms of like DeFi, there's a decentralized exchange kind of becoming like almost a bit of a super app called ref.finance. So it's one of the biggest. And then we also, so Near runs its own kind of virtual machine. So when you write smart contracts on Near, it's not like writing smart contracts for Ethereum using Solidity. But we do actually support those smart contracts. So we support Solidity and the Ethereum virtual machine on a project called Aurora. And Aurora has its own DeFi ecosystem. So there's exchanges there. I'll just name a bunch of names, no particular order or preference, but you know, Solaris is one of the more popular decentralized exchanges there. And there's a couple of money market protocols, so where you can borrow and lend. One is called Origami and one's called Bastion. So they all, you know, did quite well, got invested in, kind of, you know, still utilized today, even though things are a little quieter than they were,
right.
I don't know, a year ago.
Yeah, I mean, things are a little quieter. That is the truth, isn't it? So what is it about? Because sometimes I hear that Near is a very developer-friendly ecosystem. So in non-technical terms, how would you justify that statement, or how would you explain that? What is it about Near that makes it friendly for developers? Because without developers, a protocol really is really nothing if people aren't building stuff on it. So that's a key feature of a protocol. So what makes that statement true?
That's a really good question. It's actually, so one answer to that question is what drew me to Near in the first place. I actually was working with Harmony Protocol for a little while, and they were trying to basically, them and a bunch of other teams were trying to be Ethereum 2.0 before Ethereum 2.0. And actually Ethereum 2.0's vision has changed since then. But they were basically trying to be a sharded Ethereum. So you're probably going to ask me.
Yes. Yeah, you know, go ahead.
What is sharding?
Yes.
So sharding is basically splitting up the blockchain, splitting up the validation, splitting up the storage. And those two are two totally separate challenges. So splitting up validation and consensus, splitting up storage. So if you or me want to go talk to our friend on Facebook, why would we do that? But if we want to send a message, right? And you know, your friend's name is Sam. Sam's profile and all of the information and his photo and everything, it's stored on a server that is responsible for all the S's, probably all the SAs on Facebook. So there's a machine out there somewhere. So let's go back to Bitcoin. It's like all machines validate all transactions. Everything looks exactly the same across all of the nodes, right? When you start using sharding, you start splitting up accounts. You start splitting up storage for whatever's happening inside a smart contract. Somebody's putting an entry saying, I own this NFT. Here's a new NFT that was just minted. This other person owns it. You start splitting up that kind of stuff. It starts becoming a much more complicated computer science problem.
Why would you want to do that?
For scalability, basically, because you know, the Bitcoin blockchain, it's just going up and up and up in terms of size, but also its throughput. I mean, we don't have to discuss it, but you know, it's been discussed like ad nauseum. Like there's throughput, and then there's like, you know, there's people trying to make versions that have this much throughput and that much throughput, right? And it's not Satoshi's vision, blah blah blah, all this stuff. So you just want to do it because you want to scale. You want something that can just continue to do more and more of the computation inside smart contracts. More and more of the computation becomes done on these network of machines. More and more of the computation is done, you know, across this decentralized network where people can transact peer-to-peer, no double spending, and all of that stuff is still enforced.
Yeah. Okay, so do you see that there are a kind of a continual flow of new developers entering the community on Near? And are there any areas that maybe people are building cool stuff in Solana or Ethereum or one of the other blockchains that hasn't really happened yet in Near? Like what's emerging for Near?
That's a great question. So definitely, I haven't seen enough of the ZK stuff in terms of privacy. So in other blockchains, in other ecosystems, there's ZK like private decentralized exchanges. There's all sorts of other things happening. It's pretty interesting stuff. That's been sort of, I think, held back by some of the regulatory kind of headwinds there, but it's definitely like a really interesting area. Also ZK for just scaling. So you can use zero knowledge proofs to make the storage inside a smart contract smaller. You can do all sorts of fun stuff there. In terms of developers entering the Near ecosystem, we were getting absolutely bowled over by applications, just as the market kind of started to decline. I would say it's always the same, like sort of, the builder sentiment lags the price sentiment. So prices will run up and everyone will sort of be having a party and everything will look flashy and hot and it'll just be a lot of hot air and talk. But then the developers are onto the space after. And then they'll say, oh, we thought that there was a lot of, venture capital here or grants for our project to get started and things like that. And then the market will decline and everybody will tighten their belts and then it'll slowly sort of, dissuade those developers from coming in. So it's actually kind of dropped off a little bit.
I mean, I guess when people talk about like, is there a bubble in crypto and it's such a hot topic, right? Because do you think there's a connection between the price of a token? Like if Near is doing really well, how you get proposals in and the quality of those proposals decrease. But in hard times, like maybe we're in right now, anyone who's wanting to build is doing it because they believe in it. It's not because they're like trying to get rich quick. Am I right in thinking that?
That's interesting, actually. I would say definitely whoever is still around is around for a while. We're not going to get rid of them. They're dedicated. And actually, I mean, we do have conversations where we basically say, okay, well, let's see if they deploy, on Testnet, and let's see if they actually want to build on Near, because in a bull market, you might kind of have more of a tendency to it's kind of hard because I'm going to say play a bunch of times. You will play the games that are more pay to play in a bull market. You'll entertain that kind of thinking and you'll sort of say, okay, well, we're up. Treasury is big. Everyone's kind of flush with cash. In the last bull market, it did get like really competitive though, because there was so much cash, right? And like there's just cash flying around everywhere. It was hard to even get projects to commit to deploying. But it's sort of like, bull market, there's a lot of pay to play. And then in a bear market, none of that really at all.
It flips, eh?
Yeah.
Okay, so tell us, you've got a project called KeepOn. What is KeepOn? And flesh that out a little bit for us.
Awesome. Yeah. So KeepOn is a project I'm working on with a young hotshot developer named Ben Kurek. He's based in the Toronto Waterloo area. So he just turned 22 years old. I'm always impressed by him. He's been in the Near ecosystem for over 2 years now.
How old is Near, or how long has it been around?
Mainnet launched October 2020.
Okay, so he's kind of near the beginning.
Yeah, exactly. So he was working with a couple of folks out of Waterloo on a NFT project it was a marketplace for nonprofits to mint NFTs and to use it as sort of like a fundraising tool. And then, like market goes down and nobody's interested in altruistic use cases. I'm pretty sure the charity stuff and the forest stuff, it all just kind of it got a little quiet. It doesn't mean I don't think these are good ideas. It just means that when the money dries up, that's just a facts of life. But that didn't really look like it was kind of gonna be sustainable. So I got him a job at what is now Pagoda, which is the old Near Inc., where I used to work as a DevRel. And then
As a what?
sorry, a developer relations person, human. And yeah, I mean, I used to work at, I went from the wallet team to the developer relations team and then jumped over to Proximity. So he loves it there. Still with Pagoda, and Pagoda's kind of helping to incubate KeepOn along as well. So me and him were sitting around one day, and we had this technology on Near called link drops, where we could basically, because I mentioned earlier, like one account on Near can have many keys, and these keys can be limited to only doing particular actions. You could actually deposit some Near into a smart contract, and then you could create a special key for just that deposit. So the smart contract's now operating kind of like almost like an escrow account, holder of many escrow accounts. And you could send the private key to somebody in a link. And what they do is they use the private key to make a transaction, to create a new account, and then transfer the funds into the account. So that's called a link drop.
Okay.
So we were sitting around and we said, hey, I wonder if we could do this link drop, but also drop an NFT. Or I wonder if we could do this link drop stuff, but we could do a few other things, like maybe step one is RSVP for an event. So you click the link and it makes an on-chain transaction that says, RSVP. It doesn't really have to say much of anything. It just has to do something, like almost like a gasless transaction. It has to go from step one to step two. But then at step two, there could be a password protected step. So in that case, let's say it's a ticket for a real world event. You have to go get it scanned. Scanned by who? Somebody that has the password. So take the secret key, combine it with the password, scan it, put it on chain. Now you're at step three. What is step three? Well, that's the NFT that you get for attending the event. So we built this out, and we think it's obviously kind of really cool, because you get experiences like Eventbrite. You get experiences like any Web2 experience, and you don't have to set up a wallet first. So right now, I mean, with a lot of crypto apps, you'll go visit them and there'll just be a blank page and they'll say connect your wallet, or, MetaMask or something will fly up and say, choose an account to tell us about, and you don't even know why you're there. So we think it's much cooler, much more fun to experience the app first and then set up your wallet later when you actually want to claim that asset.
I mean, I guess you're kind of saying the way we currently do it is backwards. So you've kind of reverse engineered the experience and allowing people to have the experience and then commit into being part of that community afterwards. Am I understanding that right?
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, it just it doesn't make a lot of sense. And especially when we get into more advanced use cases. So we also have a sort of more of a free form version of this, like not a linear kind of step one, step two, step three. We have like a better kind of thing for games, or for social apps, or for NFT creator studios, or even DeFi. So if you're bridging stablecoins from another chain, you obviously need, if you're landing on Near, you need a Near wallet and you need gas to pay for transactions. And we don't know ahead of time what transactions you're going to do. We don't know what you're going to swap. We don't know what's going on. So we would put you into what we call a KeepOn trial account. And these trial accounts are basically like prepaid debit cards. They can only be used at that particular dApp. So you land in the dApp. The developer of the app has given you some crypto to use, but you can't just lift it up and walk away and go spend it somewhere else in the ecosystem. You have to use it there. And if you don't use it there, there's, after a certain amount of time or whatever, there's things like clawback, like the developer can just take back the remaining Near tokens for gas. And if you're stuck there with funds, it's the same situation you'd be in when you run out of gas. You just have to put gas in, like you just have to put Near in, and you're out.
Right.
So, and then you can actually exit the trial. You can get out of the trial. You can go to the whole ecosystem if you pay back the developer.
And so how do you monetize this as a business? Is it through the payment to the developer that you just explained?
So we actually going to run it, like we're going to run it fee free as like a public good for quite some time.
Okay.
And then we're basically just going to snapshot who are the biggest users of KeepOn. And we'll retroactively do some sort of airdrop or something. But the real plan is to actually have a token and basically have the users of KeepOn govern KeepOn. So there'll always be like a small fee to set up like a trial account or to do, just basic drops and ticketing and stuff like that.
Paid in near.
Yeah. And maybe other coins, maybe even fiat too. And we'll set up the fiat rails and we'll just swap it to USDC, put it into a treasury. We don't really want to like make money like a traditional business. We just want to actually set it up so that KeepOn users, so these apps that rely on KeepOn are actually KeepOn owners. So they'll get sort of a fair exchange. They'll get KeepOn tokens when they use KeepOn.
Yeah.
And then the fees will go to sort of keeping the protocol sustainable. So we have to kind of keep the open source alive. We have to keep making improvements. We have to keep going out into other chains, right? A lot of projects are going to go multi-chain, and this is, it's no big surprise that we would do that too when these other chains have the kind of account abstractions that we're using on Near.
So when we look at this, I mean, I think your comments about multi-chain are interesting. So I primarily trade and do stuff in Solana, and just today or yesterday, Solana, the most popular wallet in Solana called Phantom, went multi-chain now on Ethereum and Matic. What's Matic's chain? Polygon, thank you. And that's, it's kind of interesting to have that experience. And so now I don't necessarily need to have a MetaMask wallet. I can do that in Phantom, which is kind of cool. Currently, is there multi-chain aspects in Near, or is everything very much focused on Near itself?
So there's only the EVM sort of like shard called Aurora that I spoke about earlier. Yeah. There's actually a project I would love to actually just talk about that's happening on Near, because it actually touches my work with. It's really big on Near. It's on my water bottle.
Oh, hold it up.
Near.
Hold it up to your camera. Yeah, there you go.
So it says "Say hello to the boss." So it says Near, the blockchain operating system. So this is a project that is actually.
What's the name of the project?
It's Boss.
Oh, Boss.
Yeah, blockchain operating system.
Oh, I see.
So this project is really cool. So there's a lot of there's a lot of apps out there. And we as just users with wallets, we come to them and we use them, and they're mainly on websites. And we know websites are, they're deployed with AWS or some hosting provider. One that's really popular with developers called Vercel. So they're just kind of deployed. There's a lot of sort of, people are writing their TypeScript or JavaScript, and then it gets compiled and it gets spat out into these, websites. And what we've done here with Boss, one of the key parts of the technology is to decentralize those front ends. And maybe your audience has heard about some front ends are decentralized. So Uniswap, for example, hosts a version of Uniswap on IPFS, which is Interplanetary File System / Filecoin. There are issues with that, though, is that someone always has to be pinning that website. Like there has to be a server running somewhere. So it's not actually deployed on a blockchain in that sense. IPFS is a way to locate content, across many different computers, because it's looking up content by what it is, not where it is, like a URL. But it's the hosting itself really comes down to this computer or that computer. So with these decentralized front ends, the code is actually deployed on Near. It's stored on Near. And we actually created it's Eugene Kuzyakov, who is actually a colleague at Proximity. He came up with this idea actually of hosting React style components on Near. So what's great about React, it's a front end sort of JavaScript framework. What's great about it is that, you can have like a component. So this is my page, and then you can have, a subcomponent, this is, a swap for one DeFi website. this is a swap for another DeFi website on another chain. So now you can actually create one wrapper component, bring in those two components without actually writing the code for those components. So everything's composable, and you can actually deploy all of these front ends, which is really cool. So that's a big technology that's happening with Near right now. And there's a lot of other extra infrastructure being built around it. In terms of your question, which was kind of like, is there stuff in the Near ecosystem that's going multi-chain? Well, we at Proximity Labs, because we care about, we just care about DeFi in general, but we're sort of, we're stewarding the DeFi ecosystem on Near. We're supporting all of these DeFi front ends for other chains as well. So we've built decentralized front ends for one of our first examples for Ethereum mainnet was the Lido staking ETH. So we had a staking ETH component live on mainnet, so you could stake your ETH through this component, right? And the front end code is hosted on Near. So why would you want decentralized front ends? It's because you, as a user, you kind of want to be able to trust the interface that you're using. And the more we can get code, closer to the smart contracts, and then also composable, we can do a lot of interesting stuff just as an ecosystem. I don't know too much about it because I'm not a lawyer, but there's like regulatory issues as well with hosting DeFi front ends in various jurisdictions, right? Like offering access to Uniswap, for example.
Yeah. When we're transacting on Near, what is the cost of a transaction? Is it like Solana where it's like fractions of a penny? Is it like Ethereum where it's like tens or dozens of dollars? Where does it land in the spectrum?
It's very cheap. Yeah, it's fractions of a penny.
Fractions of a penny. So do you think that these types of layer ones that are so affordable to use versus maybe using something like Ethereum are one of the reasons why they put up great competition? Or is it a race to the bottom, as all these layer ones compete to be the cheapest and most affordable way to transact?
That's a really good question. I think the economics would go back to the validators. So nobody would run these machines if it wasn't cost effective to do so.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure how, I'm not sure how Solana plans to scale, if it's super cheap and it's always like that, because I think their machines have to keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger because it's not sharded or anything like that. So you can't take up a smaller kind of computational position, but bring a lot of, stake to the table and kind of play the economics differently. I don't know how that's going to play out, but that's a good question. I think, race to a bottom to a point, but at some point, people just stop running validators.
Sure. So how decentralized is Near? I know that's kind of a weird, it's a hard question to answer, but is it Bitcoin and Ethereum and, Solana at the other end that's not that decentralized?
It's definitely not it's definitely nowhere near Bitcoin and Ethereum. There are tens of thousands of nodes, right?
Yeah.
Running on
hundreds of thousands, I think. Yeah.
Lots
of nodes.
Well, there's pools, so
right.
I don't really know how people feel about that.
That's another question for the Bitcoin maxi.
Yeah, you'll split the audience again. But I think you just have to go to explorer.near.org/stats, and you can see all the validators. Last time I checked, there's close to 200 or something, and I believe there are two tiers of validators now. So there's sort of I'm going to screw this up because I haven't thought about it in a while, but there's sort of the main validators, and then there's validators of I think just state, just smart contracts.
Right. Okay, that's great. Well, this has been really interesting. I think it's cool to kind of hear as we've kind of broken down the ideas around how you engaged with Near, moving into Proximity, then on your own project as well. It's fascinating to get an understanding as well, kind of what is it like to work in this field. I think for non-technical people, it's challenging to figure out what does that mean? You work for Near, or you work with Near, or you're with Proximity, and you also have your own project on the side. It's great to understand, also some of the intricacies of what is Near protocol, and also what are you doing at KeepOn to solve some problems. I guess at the end of the day, everybody's trying to solve a problem. That's what you're trying to do as a developer. You're trying to solve a problem, and you've identified a problem with KeepOn and found a good partner, and hopefully something that you can run. I want to ask you one last question. Is there a scenario in the ecosystem of Near where you offer KeepOn as a public good to the community? In exchange for that public good, you get funding from the Near Foundation?
Yeah, that's already happened.
That's happened. Okay.
Yeah. So we did receive a grant to get KeepOn started, get it off the ground. But we just started fundraising for a seed round as well, because there will be a KeepOn token. We're not we work on KeepOn, Ben and myself, because we love it, and we are already solving problems. There are other technologies obviously being built on top of Near for onboarding and making things easier for users. But because they're sort of pseudo custodial, or they do other sort of things, they actually they have issues for DeFi. And then with myself working at Proximity, we have these great trial accounts, non-custodial, privacy preserving. If you want, you can claim them anonymously.
Right.
You can receive a trial account link and just, we don't know where you're coming from. And then you can use the Near in there to do your DeFi transactions with stable coins that you bridged from other chains. So we're solving problems there that nobody else is solving. And Ben and myself we're so geared up about it that we're not really super hard out for raising money as fast as possible. We're looking for strategic investors as well. We believe in crypto, we believe in decentralization, and we believe in sort of how we built KeepOn is sort of the right way to onboard users. So we sacrifice none of the user experience coming from a Web2 space, but we have all of the benefits of Web3. You just land in an account, you just type in Jarrett, click a button, and you start using the app. Right. As opposed to landing on a page, it says connect your wallet. Oh, you don't have a wallet. Well, you've got to go over here and you got to do this thing, and you got to, you don't
seed phrase.
Oh, you can't pay for gas. Oh, that's too bad. Go to Coinbase, or hey, we've embedded this Coinbase thing. Now put in your credit card into our website. Oh, this is kind of strange. I just want to play your game. Yeah. Right? So it always winds down to the same thing. I just want to experience the thing first, and if I like it, if I become a daily or a monthly active user, I will pay to unlock this account if I've done something meaningful here.
I love how you just listed all of the problems with Web3, the onboarding experience. Okay, Matt, this has been a great conversation. I appreciate you spending some time with me here today. It's super cool to hear some of these concepts that you've laid down for us. So I hope that KeepOn just kills it, and that you guys do amazing, and I'm sure you will. So thanks for being with me.
Thanks a lot, Jared.